welcome to ABiQ's talk about solar. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to thank the Big Five for hosting us. I'm really excited to go through some of the details for the Middle East and Africa in regards to solar. So for the slide for introduction, we've got an overview of the energy sector with a focus on the solar markets. Then we're going to be looking at the progress of ongoing and upcoming capacities in the projects. And then we're going to be finishing off with an update on some of the developers and the countries that are driving success for the solar industry. Just a quick introduction for ABiQ and how we operate. ABiQ is a business intelligence platform. The way that we gather our data is by having people on the ground in different countries that verify and validate information that we can then provide to our clients. So all the data that I'm going to be presenting to you today comes from years of hard work and verification processes and speaking to clients and people to find out what's happening on projects, people and companies across the Middle East and Africa. So if we look at the Middle East and Africa market as a power overview in terms of all sectors, in terms of energy markets, we can see that there's a whopping $633 billion worth of projects across the whole sector. And out of that, $171 billion comes from the solar. So effectively 27% of the solar market, so of the power market, comes into the solar sector. If we break that down in terms of looking at the capacities for the projects, so we've got two things happening here. One is the ongoing projects. This is projects which are being built at the moment. And the second one is the upcoming projects which are in the pipeline to be built. But we can see here that traditional gas, still takes up the biggest portion with 254,000 megawatts of power. But interesting to look there, we've got the solar power market at the moment of ongoing projects is 103,000 megawatts of power, which is being built at the moment today. Upcoming into the market, again, gas is still the sort of biggest player, traditional gas, but we can see a great increase in terms of the solar, wind, and renewable energy sector. So if we look at specifically solar now, and we give an overview of the market in terms of the Middle East and Africa. So here we're going to be looking at the market size by the value of projects and the count of projects. So we can see in the solar sector, we've got $120 billion worth of projects which are being built right now across the Middle East and Africa, with a pipeline of 50 billion projects upcoming into the market. So the number of projects respectively is 74 projects upcoming, with 91 projects ongoing in the market. Now, what I've done is I've taken a snippet just to have a look at the top 3 projects in terms of project value. Again, looking in the upcoming sector. So we've got the Upington Solar Park in South Africa, which is a $10 billion project coming into the market. Then we can look in Algeria at the Tafuk 1 Solar PV project, which is $3.6 billion. And third place comes in with the South Africa Renewable Energy Project, which is a 6.8 gigawatt round at $3.5 billion. This is phase 2. We've also got phase 3 coming online as well with the same value underneath that. In terms of projects ongoing, the one that we'll probably be highlighting the most today will be the Saudi National Renewable Energy Program, which is a $60 billion project. And that's going to be going on over the next 10 years with different packages being released on a timely basis. Second top value project comes from Algeria. It's the Algeria Renewable Energy Development and Energy Efficiency Program. The value of that project is $34 billion. And third place, we've got the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park in the UAE at $13 billion. If we break that down now and to look at the different regions, so first of all, I'll focus on the African markets and we'll look at the different regions within Africa. And again, we're looking at the values here. We'll go into capacities later on, but the value of projects in South Africa ongoing at the moment is $3.7 billion with an upcoming pipeline of $28 billion. So you've got quite a difference between Southern Africa and North Africa, almost flips the side in terms of what's upcoming and ongoing. West Africa, we've got $1.7 billion worth of projects ongoing with a pipeline of $2.4 billion. Central Africa, almost $3 billion worth of projects ongoing there in the solar sector, an upcoming pipeline of $1.6 billion. East Africa, we've got $4.1 billion worth of projects ongoing and $658 million in the pipeline. And North Africa, quite the opposite. We've got $35 billion worth of projects which are being built right now with a pipeline of $5 billion. And you can see the count of the projects on the right-hand side, just to give you an idea of the volume. Now, worth bearing in mind here that ABiQ is looking at projects in the region of $50 million and above. So the kind of capacity for the projects will be in the region of 20 megawatts and above. So there will be other areas which have got smaller value projects that we don't capture within this. Now, if we flip that, instead of Africa, we look at the Middle East now, we can see it's an equal split between upcoming and ongoing projects. It's 18 projects which are upcoming on the market and 18 projects which are ongoing right now. And the top four for each category, so upcoming, you've got Iraq Solar, 2 gigawatt in Masdar, which is a $2 billion project, followed by the Shagaya Renewable Energy Park in Kuwait of $2 billion, and then also phase 2 of that project as well, which is another $2 billion. And the Mana Solar IPPs in Oman, which is a $1 billion project. Then ongoing, again, at the top here, we have the Saudi National Renewable Energy Program at 60 billion, followed by Mohammed Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park at 13 billion, Al Faisal, Fasalia City Solar PV in Saudi, and Noor Energy as well. So we can see this nice split between upcoming and ongoing projects across the Middle East. Now, if we have a look at the capacity side, this is an overview of the Middle East and Africa, and I'm going to split them down into regions again in a minute. But you can see, the general split. Middle East in the middle there, with our Saudi renewable energy program, pushes it right up to 72,000 megawatts of projects, which are ongoing at the moment, with 11,800 megawatts upcoming. And North Africa as well, you can see that the ongoing projects there, we've got 23,000 megawatts, followed by the pipeline of 5,569 megawatts of power. And South Africa, we've got a much bigger pipeline with 22,431 projects upcoming into the market to try and relieve some of that pressure that they have in Southern Africa in terms of having a reliable source of energy and stable connections. So again, we break it down into the regions of Africa here. So we're looking at the capacities in each region of Africa. So Central Africa, you've got a capacity of ongoing projects of 2,468 megawatts, with an upcoming pipeline of 397 megawatts. East Africa, you've got 2,006 megawatts, followed by 809 megawatts upcoming. North Africa, we've got 23,770 megawatts of projects ongoing, with a pipeline of 5,569 megawatts. And again, the opposite with Southern Africa, 1,456 megawatts, followed by 22,431 upcoming into the market. And then again, we look at the split between the Middle East. The capacities kind of come in line with the values of the projects. So again, you've got 72,620 megawatts of projects ongoing, with upcoming pipeline of 11,800 megawatts coming into the market. Some of that will be coming from the Saudi National Renewable Energy Program, and we'll see that as it comes through year on year. So instead of looking at the regions here, I just wanted to identify which countries are actually dominating the market rather than Southeast, Northwest, Middle East, etc. So here we look at the project database, and we're looking at projects between 20 and 58 megawatts. And we're looking at by the project value. So you can see that Saudi has got the biggest value of projects. So it almost dominates the whole of the Middle East, with just under $70 billion worth of projects. This is upcoming and ongoing. Then you've got Algeria coming in second with just under $40 billion worth of projects. Again, on the right-hand side here, you can see this percentage split of the total market share. So when I'm looking at the Middle East and Africa, Saudi is around 35% of the market. UAE takes up around 10% of that market across the full Middle East and Africa. And you can just read down, you can see the different countries and how much value they've got with their percentage share. Now, as well as looking at the values, it's important to look at the counts, because sometimes there's some countries who've got more smaller projects rather than a fewer larger projects. So South Africa comes in the lead with the highest number of projects, and just over 23 projects in South Africa, followed by Egypt at 22. Then Saudi's got slightly less, then Kenya, then UAE, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mali, etc. Now, it's interesting to look at the projects which are happening and the countries are happening in, but we need to look at who the key drivers are, which companies are pushing those projects forward. So today we're going to look at two elements of this. First of all, I'm going to focus on the developers, and then we're going to look at the contractors as well who are pushing and driving these projects forward. So in terms of most active developers in the Middle East and Africa, you've got the Renewable Energy Project Development Office, which is $65 billion worth of projects, followed by Algeria Ministry of Energy, then Sonal Gas. You've got DEWA here in the UAE, South African Ministry of Mineral Resources and Energy, and then Power Africa in Pretoria. So this is identifying which are the main developers, the key developers that are really pushing the market forward and driving that solar market. And again, if we split it out by the project count, okay, so Aqua Power actually has got the most projects that they're involved in terms of development, and they're working on 8 projects in total, with Infinity Solar coming in second. And the Renewable Energy Project Development Office, although they have the highest value, the count of the projects is slightly less at the moment. And what we will see is that will increase as the packages are released as part of that master plan, and that number will go up over the next 10 years. Okay, so after the developers, we look at the main EPC contractors, who are actually the ones that are on the ground building these projects. So what we've done here is we've looked at the Middle East and Africa, and we've identified the top contractors that are building these projects. So MCA Group, they're involved in the highest value of projects which are ongoing at the moment, just $2.25 billion US. And you can see here that Shanghai Electric, they're operating just over about $1.7 billion, with SunPlus, Statec, Abigona, GE, L&T, TSK. And you can see some subsidiary companies coming through with their lower values as well. This is because sometimes they'll have an office as the mainland office, and they'll have a local office in country, but those projects get allocated to that local office as well. And then we look at the most active. So again, instead of just looking at the project value, we also like to see the count of the projects that are coming through. So we can see that Voltalia has got the most projects at 7, followed by Engie, then AMEA Power. And you can see the numbers there and how much, in terms of the count of the projects they make up and how much they dominate the market. Okay, here we're going to look at projects by developer type. So it's really important to understand that the different countries are operating under different sort of requirements, legislations, and regulations. So what we've done here is we've split up the projects. I've just taken a list of the top valued projects in each sector. But you can see in terms of the developer type, we've got the PPP projects, a count of 105 projects in the PPP market, with a value of just over, almost $138 billion US worth of projects. And again, with the values here, you can see the same sort of names coming up. Saudi National Renewable Energy Program, Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park, $13 billion in UAE. You've got Uppington Solar Park in South Africa, and you've got Tafuk 1 Solar PV in Algeria. Then we look at the governments that are driving the projects forward. So you can see here, we've got Algeria with Algeria Renewable Energy Development and Energy Efficiency Program at $34 billion. Then you've got Wa'ad al-Shamal ISCC power plant with $988 billion in Saudi Arabia. Then you've got Sudan comes onto the radar here with a $600 million project, which is a 500 megawatt project that's going on there. And then the last place there, you've got the Shua Energy 3 project, which is $570 million. Then we look at the private sector as well. So these are the projects which have been financed or developed by the private sector. And you can see here that some of the other countries that come in, like Namibia, the Gambia, and Nigeria, these projects have been funded and developed by private operators. So as we come to an end of the presentation here, I'd just like to cover some of the key points that we were looking at. So, number one, the active solar project market is worth a whopping $180 billion US. You've got the top countries that are really driving this forward at the moment in terms of project value is Saudi Arabia, followed by Algeria. They're ranked number 1 and 2 in terms of project value. And again, you've got KSA and South Africa have got the most active projects in terms of the count. And in total, if you combine all the solar projects that we're looking at, which are upcoming and ongoing into the market, we've got 147,872 megawatts per hour in the solar sector in the market at the moment. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you today for taking some time and listening in. We'd be really pleased to hear some feedback and take any questions that you might have regarding the content that you've seen today. So on behalf of ABiQ and behalf of the Big Five, thank you very much for your time. And that brings us to an end of the presentation. And thank you very much. And we look forward to speaking to you now to take any questions or discussion points that you might have going forward. So thanks a lot, and I'll speak to you now.
Thank you so much for this presentation, Dave. Hello, everyone. This is Manali from the Big Five team. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. We will now start our Q&A session. Audience, just a reminder, if you haven't already posted your questions, please do so under the questions tab. All right, Dave, our first question is, what are the tariffs like for solar IPPs in the region?
Hi, Manali. Thanks very much, and thanks again for having us here today. I'd like to bring in now my colleague, my in-house genius and head of content here at ABiQ. If I can introduce Muaz, who is going to support us asking some of those questions. Manali, could you just repeat the question for me one more time?
What are the tariffs like for solar IPPs in the region?
Hello.
Hi, Muaz.
It's an interesting question. It's a mixed picture, actually. Let me give you some examples here. So the last one was for Faisalia, let's say, in Saudi for the IPP Aqua Power. It's larger scale plant, 600 megawatt. It was for 1.04 cents kilowatt hour. If we go back slightly, 2020, when Masdar and EDF and Jinko JV was awarded the one in UAE for Dhafra PV, 2 gigawatt, it was 1.35 cent kilowatt hour. These two examples for the Middle East. Let's look at North Africa. Tunisia, the Norwegian company Scatec, which we've seen on the presentation from Dave, 200 megawatt PV in Tunisia was 2.44 cents kilowatt hour. Story gets slightly different really as we go south. So sub-Saharan, Zambia, Get Fit initiative, obviously 100 megawatt. This was awarded at 3.9 or 4 cents kilowatt hour. Bear in mind, if you go 5 years back, in Zambia, for example, it was 6 cent kilowatt, and now it's 4, it's going down. It was 6 in 2016. The very famous South Africa program, Renewable Energy IPP program, it's a massive program. 10 years ago, it was 20 cents, perhaps the highest in Africa, South Africa, 20 cents kilowatt hours. And last year, the record was 7 cents. So you can see from Saudi, almost 1 cent to South Africa, 7 nowadays. This is the tariffs we're talking about for IPPs. And this is, of course, based on BOO or BOT.
Thank you, Muaz. How is technology mix looking between PV and CSP?
Okay. It's very rarely nowadays when we find ourselves talking about CSP. It's massively, the mix is by far PV. Like I said, it's rarely when we talk CSP for some reason. Well, perhaps we don't want to talk about it now. It's more of a technology, it's all the forces and dynamics and the market. But it might be interesting here, talking about technology, is to touch on, rather than PV and CSP, perhaps, in my opinion, to make it more functionally valuable, more interesting, is how solar, mainly PV here, is contributing to different alternative energies. Solar today is, we've seen massively now in the world, not only in MEA region, talking about the green hydrogen ammonia as alternative fuel. And you look at those programs or projects, they often powered by solar. Also desalination, solar powered desalination. This is growing. It's RO technology was powered by solar rather than the traditional fossil fuel power plants or through the grid. Solid waste treatment or municipal waste processing now is often, converting the landfills to solar waste treatment facilities, solar powered also. So in my opinion, this is perhaps more interesting to talk about here. But again, to go back to CSP and PV, is PV by far. It's perhaps cost and, feasibility and engineering and of it.
Yeah, thank you. Where are the most opportunities in the pipeline?
Opportunities in pipeline, we talk in volume, I suppose, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. There's no doubt Saudi. If you're talking MEA, all Middle East and Africa regions, no doubt Saudi. Perhaps followed by South Africa and Kenya. interestingly, East Africa, Kenya is really so. The top 3 or 4 markets for the pipeline in terms of volume projects, the number of opportunities for contractors, consultants, suppliers, manufacturers, obviously Saudi, South Africa, Kenya, and UAE. It's slightly different when it comes to volume. Volume, Algeria comes the second. Sorry, by value, Algeria comes the second. We're talking about 40 billion US dollar worth of opportunities in the pipeline in Algeria, which is the second after Saudi. Not surprisingly, but Algeria renewable energy program has not been progressing as the government was hoping. But in theory, Algeria is the second largest market in MEA in terms of project value. Volume, again, Saudi, followed by South Africa, followed by Kenya.
Thank you.
Alice, you want to go more in details there? We can spend the day talking about opportunities in solar in the region.
I think we won't have that much time, but I have another question now. Post-COVID, inflation is noted throughout the world, raw material, logistics, and so on. How is this impacting the ongoing projects and the industry in general?
Okay. In what way, to be specific? Is it cost or the delivery time of the projects, or maybe the conversion of the project or realization of the project from announced to award to completion? Now, cost-wise, from my observation, to my knowledge, cost is still going down, especially for PV. PV cost is still going down, especially in the Middle East, followed by North Africa. It's still going down in the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, but not as the technology is becoming really available and cheaper every day for PV in particular. Here, in terms of delivery, no doubt those projects are feasible, assumably, because of, again, driven by economics 101, the demand for power, whether it's the population, industrialization, or in many sub-Saharan nations, it's shortage, obviously, and unfortunately, which is changing, improving. But the delivery of the projects, or the time projects from announced to award to complete, in my opinion, how much COVID affected that? Perhaps not much. I see they're more affected or delayed when they're delayed by finance or funding, securing fund. We understand that most of these projects are PPP, obviously, and again, thanks to the technology nowadays, it's private developers. They build their PV plants. They can sell power directly to houses and to businesses, or maybe the government is offtake these projects because national grid. It makes it more doable, but it's perhaps securing funds for these projects is what in my again from what I see, it's been more COVID again, perhaps. Yes, no doubt it's been in many projects. We've seen many projects in general, not only PV, but many projects, no progress or very limited progress, put on hold. I haven't seen much cancelled at all in the last 18 to 24 months, if you're talking COVID. But it's mainly, I would say, securing the funds for these projects rather than COVID. Prices going down, or the cost is going down. It's continued to go down in the last 24 months.
Thank you.
Delivery time of the project is a different story. Sorry.
No, sorry. I thought.
Yeah, the duration from award to completion is perhaps a different story. This more depends on the developer, I would say. Some developers continue to progress on the projects really during COVID, which we're still going through. But again, those developers who we've seen very limited progress on their projects from award to EPC contractor, it was mainly in my opinion, cash flow management and securing funds rather than COVID.
Perfect. We just have one more question. Why is solar value and activity in West Africa lagging significantly compared to the other MENA regions?
Lacking in what way? It's not too many initiatives for solar, or
just 1 second. We'll just speak to the audience here. We'll just see if they can give us an insight. 1 second. Why solar power is not widely used, basically?
Why solar power is not widely used in Western Africa? In particular, I don't see.
It depends. I think Western Africa is a big market. You know, if you look at Nigeria in comparison to further northwest of Africa, it's very different appetites to the way that they source energy. You know, Nigeria is reliant very much on sort of diesel generator powered electricity, whereas the East got more of an appetite, maybe more funding, more financial initiatives. It could also be that there are lower value projects that we don't capture on our radar in those markets. That's another option.
Nowadays, having you, Dave, mentioned about small projects. Nowadays, again, thanks to the technology and the nature of procuring and mobilizing and commissioning those projects, there are perhaps hundreds of small modular plants. They might be off ABI research radar, but it's hard to, even when, again, fundamentally, yes, you might have alternative sources for energy, but it's hard to say no to solar nowadays, especially when you got lots of sun, right? And when we're talking Western Africa, the northern part of Western Africa is a big part of the Sahara region. It's hard to. I'm not. I don't know. We have to look at. It's not too hard to do that. We have to look at how active compared to other regions West Africa is in terms of solar energy, or maybe in terms of looking at alternative sources for energy in general, or fuels. I'm not sure. I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers on me, but. We can find out. We can look at the view for that, and we can share our findings. We can put it available to everyone here.
All right, perfect.
There might be regulatory. There might be, again, government. Government strategy. Government. The entire business climate, attracting private investment, because all those are either private or PPP projects. Again, is the government giving me a reason to come, give me a reason to stay, right? For those kind of projects. So there might be non-technical reasons for that.
All right. Thanks, Moaz. I think that would be it from my side. Thank you both, Dave and Moaz, for a great session, and thank you for joining us today, everyone. We look forward to see you at the Big Five live in person at the Dubai World Trade Center next week from 12 to 15 September. Stay safe and goodbye.